The Module 1 of English for Academic and Professional Purposes is entitled Reading Academic Text. This Module 1 is divided into two lessons. Lesson 1, Nature of Academic Text, which we are going to discuss about the academic text, language use, and text structure. While the Lesson 2 will talk about the synthesizing academic text, which includes the thesis statement, summarizing, paraphrasing, and outlining. In your previous subject, which is reading and writing, you have learned that reading is a skill. Therefore, that it can be learned and enhanced. Let us now look into another important aspect, the reading material. What are academic texts? Academic text, it is a product of communication or piece of language used for academic purposes or in relation to academic courses or subject. In reading academic texts, you need to identify first the language that need to be used. A well-written text uses an appropriate language and words in delivering the message. It has to be appropriate to the topic. The choice of the language also should be suited to the reader. This also covers the writer's tone of writing, subjective or objective. The subjective tone of writing uses the writer's personal biases and judgment. The objective tone of writing, on the other hand, uses factual information and arguments. The writer has to decide the language and tone of writing depending on the purpose in writing. Academic texts have a specific structure and language compared with texts across disciplines. As a reader, you have to be familiar with academic text structures and language for comprehension. Academic texts usually have these basic structures. First is a narration. Narration is a basic strategy used by writers for presenting action. It is used by writers for a variety of purposes: to illustrate and support ideas with anecdotes, entertain the readers with stories, predict what will happen with scenarios, and explain how something happens or should happen with processed narratives. Narration tells a story or explains a sequence of events. It can be fiction or nonfiction. Examples of narratives are novels, fables, screenplays, biographies, history, books, accident reports. The goal of narration is not only to retell everything that happened, but rather to screen and present details which explain the significance of the event. Narratives retell a past event. The sequence of events can be presented using strategies like flashbacks or to previous events and flash forward or to the present or future. To help the readers follow the series of action, transitional words and phrases should be used. Narration can be objective or subjective. Objective narration presents facts to create an accurate timeline of events. Doctors use objective narration to document a patient's history. Police officers write objective narratives to relate the details of a crime or record the testimony of the eyewitness. Subjective narration conveys the impressions, feelings, insights, or point of view. A student's personal essay, which details his 4-year pleasant experiences in the school, is an example of a subjective narration. Number two, definition. Defining is one of the strategies in writing. This is used in explaining unfamiliar terms. Clearly stated definitions play a critical role in a written text. Definition is used for two major purposes: to explain or to convince. We have five types of definition. First is standard definition. Second, regulatory definitions. Third, qualifying definitions. Fourth, personal definitions. And fifth, invented definitions. Standard definitions are definitions which meaning rarely changes and is universally accepted. For example, definition of right angle. Regulatory definitions are the meanings assigned by organizations and changes depending on how it is used. For example, Pag-asa's definition of critical level. Qualifying definitions, meanings of words that are subject for interpretation. For example, delinquent. Personal definitions are definitions which depend on the interpretations or assigned meaning of the writer himself. For example, the definition of friendship. Invented definitions, meanings given to words which are newly coined as already being used in the society. For example, the definition of flash mob. Third is classification. Classifying is one of the strategies in writing which involves combining objects or items into categories based on distinct characteristics. These grouped and classified items are labeled under new combinations. Classification paragraphs can be organized using an official or personal classification. Official classification includes a widely known and accepted categories used by the government, a business, or an organization. For example, the classification used by PAIASA are yellow rainfall warning, orange rainfall warning, and etc. While personal classification is the own made categories. Fourth is comparison and contrast. Comparison is to see how two objects or items are alike, while contrast is to identify their differences. Writers use comparison and contrast not just as a basic strategy in writing, but as a way of thinking and learning. According to a learning theory, new concepts are rapidly acquired if their similarities and differences are established first. The two ways in using comparison and contrast in writing are in chunks and in sequence. In chunking, the characteristics of the items being compared are presented separately, whereas in sequencing, the attributes of the objects are presented point by point. For example, in chunking, the characteristic of Honda Civic car are presented first, then followed by the features of Toyota Corolla car. Using sequenced comparison, the features of the two cars will be analyzed feature by feature. And the last structure is cause and effect. Cause and effect as a writing strategy states or explains the reasons why things happen or explains the results of certain phenomena. In writing a cause and effect paragraph, it is important to identify the most important factor among several causes. This will become the focus of discussion in the written text. For example, what causes the increasing rate of school dropout? Family problems, poor performance of students. It has the same case with the effect paragraph. The writer has to single out what could likely be the future outcomes of a certain phenomenon. For example, what will be the effect of social networking sites? Will it destroy the personal social relationships? Or will it promote creation of additional friendships? Let's move on to the lesson 2, synthesizing academic text. First, we have thesis statement. A thesis statement is a sentence or sentences which summarizes the main idea of the paper. The following are the characteristics of the thesis statement. First, it covers exactly the topic you want to talk about, no more and no less. Second, it lets your readers know what to expect. Third, it usually appears on your paper's introductory paragraph. And fourth, it helps you better organize and develop the contents of your paper. Second, we have summarizing. Summarizing involves condensing the text into a shorter form. It involves getting only the most important parts of the material. A summary is normally a one-third length of the original text. Third, we have paraphrasing. Paraphrasing entails the use of rewording and rephrasing of the original text. The rewording and rephrasing are done to achieve clarity of the text. A paraphrase material is usually the same length as the original text. Last, we have outlining. Outlining is a process of organizing information gathered from reading. It uses an outline or a skeletal framework which includes the idea separated by a specific heading and uses a numbering system. Outlining makes it possible for you to arrange the ideas, details, and examples based on importance or chronology. There are two kinds of numbering system. First, traditional, and second, modern. Outlining has two types, topic outline and sentence outline. The topic outline simply includes the specific word or phrases, whereas the sentence outline, as the term suggests, uses a sentence or sentences.